What is going on, everybody? I go by Philly Mike, and this is the Philly Talk Podcast. And today we have a special guest, Mike Kaye, Eagles beat writer for NJ.com. How are you doing today?
Well, as NJ Mike, I feel good talking to Philly Mike. How you doing?
Hey, it's good. Philly Mike, NJ Mike. It should be a good show. I'm doing all right. So let's get into some of this camp talk now. We know this is probably day 7 for camp, if I'm not mistaken, but the last 2 days were pads. I know some of the veterans got a rest day today, but what is the vibe at the practice been for the whole 7 days, just overall? Let's start.
Well, I think it's been very upbeat. I think it's been very physical and it's been very competitive. I mean, listen, this is a new staff. There's going to be a different feel. This is the 4th coaching staff that I've covered in my career. Prior to coming to the Eagles, I covered the Gus Bradley Jaguars and the Doug Marrone Jaguars. So, 4 different coaches, 4 different fields. But what I'll say about Nick Sirianni and his coaching staff is they're probably the most attentive that I've ever seen. They are coaching in between almost every drill. Like, it could be a team drill. They'll pull, Boston Scott aside and say, this is what you did wrong here. This is what you did right here. Nick Mullins, this is what you did right here. This is what you did wrong here. It doesn't matter. They want to coach you up. They want to teach you. They take every opportunity to coach. And, for a team that's struggled to develop talent over the last, 5 to 7 years, to me, that's a positive sign. Will it mean that they're a good coaching staff or they'll be successful? That remains to be seen. But at least in the early start, they're practicing what they preach as far as competition and teaching. And I think that that's working right now.
Yeah, I was definitely going to get into that a little bit. Exactly. The player development for the Philadelphia Eagles, whether it is on the, the draft picks itself, on Doug Peterson, on members of the staff that's not here, it's definitely been lackluster in the city of Philadelphia. So it's good to see that. Now, for the veterans, do you think that's going to, make them second guess? Like, is this really what we're doing? Or you think it's been an overall vibe with the, the in-depth training or teaching after each play, good, bad, ugly, sad? Do you think everybody's falling into that, or mainly just the young guys?
Well, I in talking to some people around the team, I can tell you that there are veterans on this team that are really happy about this transition. Nick Sirianni will stop a meeting to answer a question. He's very informative. There are veterans who want to know the why of what they're doing. And I think this coaching staff has those answers. Again, does it mean that they're going to be successful? Not necessarily, but they're checking off a very important box for veterans who have been through multiple coaching staffs, who have seen a lot. A lot of these guys were part of the Super Bowl team. They know what it's like to win, and they know what it's like to be on a winning team. And I think there's a lot of guys that initially said to themselves, well, this guy's interesting. I wonder if this is going to work out. And then kind of realized once they got in the room with him, hey, this guy's genuine. He's honest. He's going to coach us up. He's not – he might be a rah-rah guy, but there's logic behind why he is as excited as he is, how much he loves the game. There's nothing wrong with being a nerd. I mean, typically if you're a coach, you are a nerd for the game, right? And so I think, look, it's okay to doubt Nick Sirianni. I'm sure there are people on the staff and on the roster who still say, hey, do you think this is going to work out? Because he hasn't proven himself yet. But I think this narrative that he's this pushover sort of yes man to Howie Roseman or Jeffrey Lurie is asinine, frankly. Everything I've seen thus far has shown that he's his own man, and he's really kind of taking the bull by the horns as far as coaching up and really addressing these guys. Like, he's got into it with Lane Johnson. Like, he's gotten into it with Jalen Reagor. He's coaching guys up. Like, these are veteran players and guys that the team is invested in. And, he's not afraid to get in there and kind of mix it up. Jeffrey Lurie was at practice today. Howie Roseman was at practice today. And Nick Sirianni laid into Jalen Reagor. A guy that, Howie Roseman staked his reputation on, a guy that Jeffrey Lurie approved as a first-round pick. So clearly he's not intimidated by the situation at all. He's just going to do things his way. And if his way is different, so be it.
Yeah, I think different at this point, coming off a 4-11 season, is something that we could use. We don't need a similarity in coaching. Not saying Doug's a way of doing things didn't translate. It did. It got us a ring. But I think, sometimes when the locker room gets so everything the same, you got to switch it up. And that's normally when they go a different route in coaching. But speaking of, some of this day 1 and day 2 with the pads on and some of the highlights we've seen, I want to let you if you can elaborate on the Jalen Reagor. I did hear that from the amazing beat writers we have for the Philadelphia Eagles. What was he? Did he line up wrong or did he set up wrong, or what was it exactly?
We're still not sure. It was the second team run drill. Maybe it was that he lined up wrong. Maybe it was an effort thing. Maybe I don't want to speculate too much because it was clearly something in a detail-oriented fashion that he screwed up in, and probably something that he screwed up in multiple times, because one colleague said that it sounded like he was saying, I'm tired of this stuff. It could have been that the group screwed up a lot of times and not necessarily Jalen. So, without that context, the only context we have is that Sirianni came on hard, man. I've never seen a coach that angry in a training camp practice, ever. And he let him have it. And, he's done that. This isn't like a rarity. He's done this to John Hightower a couple of days ago. He did it to the entire team a week ago. So he's going to be vocal when he sees stuff that he doesn't like. And I think that level of accountability is respected by the veterans and the guys who want to win. And the guys who want to win are typically the guys who have been around for a while and don't want to waste another year of their career, another year of health, dealing with BS. Jeff Fisher's famous for saying 8-8 bullshit. And sorry, I don't know if this is a kid's show, but those veterans don't want another 4-11 or 4-11-1 season. They don't want to go 7-10 1 or 7, or I guess it's 17 games. So like 6, 6-11. That's not their desire right now. They want to win games. If you're Jason Kelce, you're not putting your body through this with 2 young daughters at home, just to have a 4-13 season. You know what I mean? So I think the veterans appreciate that level of accountability. And I think the rookies appreciate that the veterans are being held accountable, because it's a league where you want to, learn by example, and the example is being set. And this is a young roster compared to a lot of the ones that the Eagles have had over the years.
Yeah, and you've seen it. You're probably one of the guys asking questions. A bunch of accountability questions came to Jalen Reagor after the practice was over, and they were speaking to the media. And he likes the accountability for the room, for the veterans, just as you spoke of. And I think it's good. One of the things that Nick Sirianni preached as soon as he got here was fundamentals. I didn't think he was going to go that hard with it, but when you see things wrong, this is the time to correct it in training camp. Then you can correct it in preseason, and it's not a long season. It's not a basketball season, 80 some games. If you lose one early in the season, you can go on a 3-game losing streak in the NBA or MLB, and it's not that big of a deal compared to each and every week in the NFL. So I love it, especially with such a young staff. And the first thing that possibly veterans and outsiders will think is he's going to be a pushover. Now, I love it. He's not Joe Judge, but thank God he's not Joe Judge. But I like what Nick Sirianni's bringing. So you've been quoted saying that I don't want to put this expectation on Zach McPherson, but he resembles a little Sheldon Brown. You want to elaborate on what he showed you in these last couple of days, just being around the ball, being physical, and things of that sort?
Yeah. Look, when you watch his college tape, you can see that he's an extremely physical guy, and he was playing in an offensive conference. He's a guy who really studies well. He's not going to win based on his size. He's not going to win based on his speed. That wasn't Sheldon Brown's game. He's going to be winning stuff based on his physicality, and his technique. And that's really what Zach McPherson's doing right now. He's taking in a lot of stuff. He told me yesterday that he really studies Darius Slay's progressions in his coverage. Like, that's some next level rookie stuff right there. That JG, we asked him about it today. He said, typically it's difficult for guys to be able to keep up their technique every day of camp because there's so much going on, but that's something that Zach is doing. I was a fan of the pick. I totally get why they went that way. Frankly, I think he was one of the few guys left that had starter potential. To me, his ceiling is a very good number 2 cornerback. And I'll tell you this, internally, they are very excited about him. Very excited. They brought in Steven Nelson. Steven Nelson's a 1-year bridge, which I think was smart. You think about it with a bridge quarterback back in the day, now you don't really do that as much anymore. But, this gives them the opportunity if Slay is playing well and they feel like they have the other side taken care of and it's getting targeted a ton, they're not going to mess with Zach's confidence. Then if Darius Slay were to go down, you can move Nelson to make him your number 1 corner, and McPherson can step up and be that number 2 guy. It's better to have a stacked deck than just a few cards. Am I right? So honestly, if you're looking at camp right now, they're at least 4 deep at corner, which is kind of crazy. You go into camp and you're like, okay, cool. Avonte Maddox can play nickel and Darius Slay is going to be what he is as the number 1 corner. But now you have your number 2 corner in Steven Nelson, who's proven. And then you've got Zach McPherson, who's a young guy. If Nelson struggles or gets injured or Darius Slay gets injured, he's going to be good enough that you feel like putting him out there. And I think that's important, for the confidence, especially of a defensive coordinator whose background is as a DB. I mean, that's really important. And then I think, Michael Jacquette's had some good moments. Craig James has had some good moments. And everybody's going to be like, well, they can upgrade over them. Well, a 5th corner in the league is typically not going to be an ideal starter, right? So cornerback is the toughest position to cultivate multiple players of talent at. That's a fact. A lot of people, if you watch just Eagles football, you would think wide receiver is. But cornerback is an extremely hard position to cultivate a ton of talent at. And right now, I think they have better depth than they did last year, probably better depth than the year before. I like Steven Nelson more than I like a guy like Jalen Mills or Ronald Darby. And obviously, Darius Slay is a talent upgrade over both those guys. I think McPherson's a better number 3 corner, outside corner than anyone they've had at that number 3 outside corner position in a while. And if Avonte Maddox can play the way he did as a rookie in the nickel spot, you're feeling good. Plus, they have Josiah Scott, who they really like as well, who I think can be a very good backup nickel. And eventually, if you don't want to pay Avonte Maddox, he could be your starting nickel next year.
Yeah, I agree. I know for the fans and a lot of people who watch the podcast, cornerback has been a talked about subject all through this offseason. And again, it gets, boring when it's like the early part of July, the end of June, your draft's out the way. You're just kind of trying to think of what we can talk about. I mean, you guys as writers and as content creators, and just a general conversation of the Eagles. And Steven Nelson was a guy who's been brought up a lot, and it made sense, not just saying like a guy like Zach McPherson couldn't do it, but why do it to him in such an early part of his career, being a 4th round pick, putting the expectations on him. And now you have a nice depth piece, and this is a passing league. So, you're going to have these packages where you have to bring in multiple DBs because of the 5-4 receiver sets and things of that sort. But yeah, you can never have too many cornerbacks. You can never have too many pass rushers in the league that is transitioning to pass. To talk about that, the linebacker position, we saw Davion Taylor starting to take some steps, and now he's listed as what, a calf injury?
Yeah, he's week to week.
Week to week. How has he been flying around? And I noticed that from you guys writing, of course, because we getting it all from you guys, that they've been doing a lot of rotating at the linebacker position more than any position. Is that them really trying to find the best pair of linebackers out there, for the simple fact that we will be playing a lot of dime and nickel, and you're not going to be in base and have 3. So are they trying to figure out who's the perfect pair? Because even a guy like Eric Wilson is getting rotated out of first team reps just possibly because they want to see. Or am I a little off on that?
No, I actually think you come mighty prepared. I wish every podcast host came as prepared as you are for this question. So let's start with with question A in there, right? So Davion Taylor, first week he's working with the first team nickel. Looks competent. I mean, he really does. I mean, last year's training camp and even into the season, the guy looked completely lost. Now he's taken some extra time. I wrote about it last week, but he took some extra time, asked Nick Rallis, the linebackers coach, for extra time. He asked JG for extra time. He's asked to be used on the field a little bit more. He's asked to have some extra time in the field, in the meeting rooms. So he's a guy who's taken it upon himself to improve. He has some self-awareness about what he doesn't know. And that's really tough for a young player and literally for anyone in any walk of life, knowing what you don't know. And I think that's something that Davion Taylor has kind of taken in stride, and he's looked pretty good. Now, in regards to the rotation of the linebacker spot, JG answered that question earlier today and said, they want to get everybody used to situations, because if you keep 6 linebackers, a guy goes down, you're not going to have ideal situations. And it's not just about the linebacker group. You're talking to the nickel corner. You're talking to the outside corners. You have to trust the guys in front of you, and they have to trust the guys in back of them. So it's getting guys like Sean Bradley. It's getting guys like Eric Wilson. It's getting guys like Davion Taylor to have an understanding and a rhythm with other starting players. Because here's the thing. Nick Sirianni and Jonathan Gannon have both said that they tailor their systems around the players in there. Here's the problem. When a player goes down, and if he's not good enough, the rest of the defense has to understand and where they need to step up and what they need to do and what the weaknesses are. This is getting them an opportunity to kind of see what they have everywhere on the defense. And I think that that's actually a really refreshing and smart move, especially at linebacker, a position where it's become such a hybrid role where you've kind of got to be really good in coverage, especially if you're going to play zone, and then also be able to blitz and do a lot of things, and the communication level is up there. It just makes sense to introduce all these different looks now, figure out what you do well with certain guys, and then throw them out there. Because realistically, what you're going to do is you're going to probably start Alex Singleton and Eric Wilson at linebacker. Well, Singleton's been on the COVID list for the last 7 practices. So you might as well take that extra time to give the other guys reps. And I think that that's really smart. And not to be too overtly positive, but I think you're seeing guys like TJ Edwards step up. You're seeing guys like Sean Bradley make plays, Davion Taylor before he got injured. Right now, I think they only have like 5 healthy linebackers because, Singleton's on the COVID list and you've got Davion Taylor sidelined. So you've got Sean Bradley, TJ Edwards, Eric Wilson, Rashad Smith, and Jacoby Stevens. Jacoby Stevens got first team reps today, and had a pick on Jalen Hurts. So, everybody's getting the opportunity to not only show what they can do, but build confidence within themselves and their depth chart and their team. And I think that that's really important, especially when you look at tape. And just in my history of covering the league, when you're able to show something on the field, especially with a heightened sense of competition, right? Like if Jacoby Stevens and Rashad Smith are making plays against the third string offense, those guys might be, Arena Football League or CFL players in 6 months, right? So instead of, putting them against lesser talent, you're allowing them to kind of come in and play against guys who are going to be playing on Sundays, who are going to have main roles and be getting a lot of snaps. I think there's a valued point in evaluating guys against the toughest tasks, because then you know that the iron has sharpened the iron and not the iron has fallen into the sink, as it were.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And like you said, I love the self-awareness of a guy like Davion Taylor. I actually had him on the podcast, and I don't know why, but he admitted to me, in his draft experience and all that. I was like, how did it feel to get the call from the Eagles? He was like, me and my agent, we really thought we were going in the 4th or 5th round, to be honest. When I got that call in the 3rd, I was super excited.
So did most of the people in the league.
Yeah. But you can see again the raw athleticism there, and it's just about, getting a coaching staff that can develop that talent. And next thing you know, you're talking about a steal Well, especially if he was a little bit later. But I definitely I'm hoping the best for him. But before we switch to the offense, which I do want to get offense a little bit, what got me and you in contact was that little post I put where, as much as we want to downplay what Howie Roseman did with the amount of money and everything, substituting Nathan Gary for an Eric Wilson, bringing in Anthony Harris for a Jalen Mills, bringing in Kerrigan for a Vinny Curry, and then getting a guy like Steven Nelson where we were unknown on the outside guy before, Zach McPherson came up. I think this defense is under Jonathan Gannon is going to be a lot more versatile and a lot better than what we've seen over the years, including the pass rush. Would you agree that this is probably the most talent we had on the defense in a while?
Yeah, I think the defense has better depth than they've had in a very long time. I would say that their first team group is better. This defense is going to be trouble. I feel like this season is going to be a lot like 2016, where the defense was pretty dominant and the offense kind of fluttered from week to week. And frankly, if that's the case, that's a good sign for this team, considering what they went through last year and the fact that they are like stacked up with draft capital next year and they'll have some salary cap space. So I think that would be a positive note for this Eagles team.
All right, so let's transition to offense for good 7 minutes. I know you got to get up out of here, but let's start with that left tackle position, which was probably everybody's eye on the biggest competition. And I know Nick Sirianni and the staff ain't going to come out and say it's over, but Jordan Mailata has done everything to earn that spot as of now. How do you think it's going to unravel? I seen, one of the beat writers said about him really putting Brandon Graham on his back either yesterday or the day before, and he's really just taken a big leap over Dillard. What have you seen in the struggles and the ups and downs for both them?
Well, I think Jordan Mailata has been next level better. That said, it's still early in camp. There's been 2 padded practices. And frankly, in order for Jordan Mailata to really win this job, he's got to get that extra credit. You know what I mean? He's going up against a couple of things. Here's what's going up against him. If Jordan Mailata plays well and becomes a starter, you have to pay him almost immediately. With Andre Dillard, you've got another 2 years to kind of sit and wait and see what happens. Mm-hmm. He's also battling the fact that Andre Dillard was a first-round pick just 2 years ago. And, by the way, they also traded up for him, so it's more than just a first-round pick invested in him. On top of that, Jordan Mailata is dealing with a completely new coaching staff outside of his offensive line coach. So if the offense needs more of a finesse blocker and they feel more comfortable with Dillard, hey, maybe, this is supposed to be a better developing coaching staff. Maybe they want to start with Dillard first, because once you bench Dillard, you can't really go back to him. So he's dealing with a lot of that stuff. Also, the fact that Dillard really can't play swing tackle and Mailata can, it makes you think, well, let's put Dillard, into a situation where, hey, he can prove himself in the regular season, then we'll figure him out, So, but that said, so far it's been extremely one-sided. I will say today, Andre Dillard looked very competent with the first team. Granted, Brandon Graham wasn't around. Granted, Darius Slay wasn't in there in coverage. So, I mean, it was a little bit easier of a job. But I don't think that Andre Dillard's been absolutely atrocious, but I think Jordan Mailata's been just that much better.
Yeah, and I agree 100%. It's one of these things. It's like a boxing match, and he's the champion. The only way Jordan Mailata is going to get the start or not if he gets a knockout. If it comes to a judge decision, ding, 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 Andre Dillard might just win that. For all the reasons you said. But speaking of some of the skill players, Davonte Smith being out, what have you seen from a guy like Quez Watkins, from a John Hightower, from this young wide receiving core, even Travis Fulgham, who spoke up a little bit today via reports about him, losing time to Alshon? What have you seen in all that situation?
Well, I think let's start off with Travis, because Travis has looked very good. He missed a couple of practices during the first week with some lower body stuff. But, I mean, he got the best of Darius Slay on 3 reps yesterday. I mean, he's making plays. He's fine. He can be a starter. he is an NFL starter, in my opinion. Davonte Smith looked good before he got injured. Quez Watkins has been really, really good, but the sample size is small. He's only been involved in 3 practices. He's making plays, though. John Hightower had his best catch all summer. Today, Jalen Hurts put a beautiful ball towards the sideline. We talked about Zach McPherson, who's heavy in coverage, and Hightower leaped up and got it and played up to his size, which he really didn't do last year.
No.
Arcega-Whiteside's been fine, but at this point, you need a little bit more than fine from him. Reagor's been a little disappointing. I mean, he is coming off of a failed physical. There's a lot going on personally. He's obviously hearing it from the coaching staff. That doesn't mean he's a bust. That doesn't mean he's done. It's just not a great start to camp. Don't overlook it. I mean, like, there's still another month or roughly like 3 weeks of camp. There's still a preseason. Like, there's other stuff that can happen. I mean, I think a lot of us rush to judgment very quickly, and we have with the Dillard Mailata battle that you brought up. But I think with Reagor, there are certain mitigating factors here. I also think you have to look at his quarterback play last year. So they're not going to give up on him outright. So you might as well take the time to kind of appreciate the process, I guess, with him.
Yeah. I agree. Quez Watkins was a guy that, again, I do content and prior to the draft, as soon as he ran that 40, he caught my eye because he came in second to Henry Ruggs. So I actually knew, I thought that year we were going to go wide receiver with the first round and then dip back into the pool later. I didn't think we were going to go 3 with Reagor, Hightower, and Quez. But Quez was a guy I was looking at in the 5th or 6th round just off my, mock drafts, just trying to stay busy in the offseason. And it was nice to get him. And I think, route running has been his biggest problem. The guy is 6 foot. He put some weight on this year, but the speed and the leaping ability has never been a problem. And just the tape I've seen, it's just he had a very small route tree because of his size and the school he played in and how fast he was. So it was good to see him working out this offseason and coming in. And just to wrap this up, you know what I mean? We've been trying to see we've heard that we've seen more 21 personnel with 2 running back sets, and he's been looking like he's been putting out the speedy backs, like a lot of Miles Sanders, Jason Huntley, and some Kenny Gainwell. How is that, personnel group looked with Jalen Hurts? And then to wrap it up, Jalen Hurts, more up or more down with some of his passes and reading defenses?
Well, I think 21 personnel will speed 21, and or some people call it pony, which I prefer we didn't call it pony. Because I think about that song. Yeah. Anyway, it's looked good. Look, here's the thing: when you have somebody like Jalen Hurts, who is already a threat to run, having 2 other running backs in that backfield, bookending him is kind of scary, especially when you have guys who can catch the ball. So you look at a guy like Miles Sanders. We saw what he did as a rookie. Kenny Gainwell at Memphis caught a ton of passes. Jason Huntley caught a ton of passes and was using the slot at New Mexico State in college. Boston Scott, we already know, is a very good screen runner. So you have all of these weapons, and so if you're going to use them in chorus, look, here's the thing. Let's be honest here. If the wide receiver group isn't up to par, you're going to use your running backs and your tight ends more, right? So if you're playing 22 and 21 personnel, that's scary for a defense because that's a big group, and you also have to deal with the blocking. And I think here's something that a lot of people don't talk about in the league. And Howie Roseman said this the other day, and it is factual because I asked people around the league. Nobody wants to play this offensive line. This offensive line beats you up. And they can get in space. And so when everybody's healthy and you're getting in space and you're running 22 personnel or 21 personnel, and you have that blocking downfield, and guys can not only catch, they can run screens, so they have good vision, and they actually run the ball well. Oh, and by the way, the quarterback can run. That's scary. Like, that's hard to plan for. A lot of people talk about not using 21 personnel when they have a fullback because a lot of defenses like to use exotic blitzes, and that puts the fullback, who's typically not that quick, in kind of a rough spot. Mm-hmm. But if you have speed personnel and you have guys that can block, by all accounts, Jason Huntley's become a better blocker. Boston Scott's a pretty okay blocker. Miles Sanders needs to improve. Kerryon Johnson's a really good blocker. So is Jordan Howard. So with that said, if you can have that free release, if you can fake it to one side, turn to the other, fake that too, and then your quarterback design runs, like that's, there's stuff you can do and be creative there. And I think it's not a look we're used to seeing in Philly, but it's a look that I think they can really take advantage of if you have a mobile quarterback who's like Jalen Hurts, who, has been up and down during training camp. But what I've been impressed by is his ability to bounce back from mistakes. So today he threw an interception to who the hell knows, to Jacoby. He was targeting who the hell knows. Jacoby Stevens picked it off like by himself. He was just like there, like this. Next play, he as I brought up, he targets John Hightower towards the sideline and throws one of his best passes of all camp. So he's a guy who has a short memory. We don't really talk about short memories with cornerbacks and like safeties and linebackers and stuff like that. But Jalen Hurts is mentally sound in a way where he's not bothered. He goes on to the next play. It's like a pitcher who gives up a home run. You see what a pitcher's worth after he gives up a home run, that first one. And so I think with Jalen Hurts, it's training camp. You're not allowed to hit the quarterback. So it kind of stunts your ability to really diagnose the mobility. But for Jalen Hurts, that's his calling card. And I think his ability to throw down the field, his ability to make big plays with both of his arms and his legs, and having that speed 21 makes him an interesting cat. And I think, what he needs to improve is his intermediate accuracy, which is well documented.
Yeah, and like you said, to me, 4 games, COVID season. This is basically an extension of his rookie season because of all the switching up and coaching staff and play design and all that. But hey, thank you for coming on, my guy. Greatly appreciated. You do great work, and a lot of my subscribers, they have their favorite beat writers and all. And they always say you always keep it a buck, and they love what you do. So it's good that you came on, and maybe, depending on how the season go, we can get another one of these later down the line. And hopefully we're talking about leading the NFC East with all the Dallas Cowboys, Giants, boolah they do all the time,
Well, thank you for having me, Mike. Like I said, I was really impressed by how prepared you came for this one. So normally you come on and they ask you about guys that really aren't on the bubble, but you came prepared and you brought it. So I appreciate it.
All off the dome. This is what we do.
All off the dome. Hey, look, there must be something about guys named Mike,
There we go. Yep. I appreciate it. And like I said, until next time, Philly Tall Podcast Nation, we are out. Peace.